Hey, welcome everyone back into Crypto's News. It's me, Omar Bam, giving you the most important things that are happening in crypto to make sure that you stay informed. Man, it's been years, but it's been a crazy ride to be a part of crypto with you guys. And, it's been kind of uncertain in recent months as to whether we've been in a bear market or not. But I think generally the consensus now is, that we're in a bear market. And at the very least, we've bottomed out, I guess, or I guess in the best case scenario, and we're just enjoying some nice flat periods, range bound before moving higher. But yeah, things have to get darker before dawn. We've been through it a few times now. And it's always a pleasure to be here with you guys. There was almost a moment there where I wasn't going to be here during the bear market. But I got to say, it's nice to be here when it's a little bit more quiet. So, yeah, I hope you're having a great day. I hope that you enjoy what I've collected for you and find it entertaining and valuable as always. Welcome back to Crypto's News. Hit the like button, subscribe if you want to make sure to join us for future streams. And please help out by sharing these videos while we relaunch the channel and get going again. The more people are here, the more energy we get, and generally the better information you might even get, because I tend to get even more DMs and people calling me out on shit in the comments. So yeah, it can be valuable to you as well if you share the videos, and it helps the channel out in a big way, and you get my appreciation for that. But let's go ahead and start off. What's up, 10 pence, Sean, Dreamcatchers? Good to see you guys. Sean Simpson says it's a shark market. It'll eat us alive without warning. Yeah, it's survival mode. I think more and more people are realizing that. So let's start off on our tour by looking at the prices as usual. So you have Bitcoin down 1.3% at $19,051. You have Ethereum up 0.4%. It actually started climbing as the day went on. It didn't start off over $1,300, but that's where we currently are right now. Still down 9.8%, which is not, I think, the worst case scenario for what people were expecting after the great Ethereum merge happened. I think those who were betting to the downside probably were hoping to short a little bit further, but it just has not happened. Not that it won't happen, but I think that it is interesting that Bitcoin is holding up still so well, and so is Ethereum after some of the I guess promises of rate hikes and everything else we heard from the Fed. So in my opinion, we're actually seeing some strength here. While you have stocks today down about between 1.6% and almost 2% across the different indexes, you still have crypto holding up quite well. One crypto that has been performing noticeably well is XRP. I've mentioned that one because of a possible finally finishing settlement with the trial with the SEC. XRP is up 57.2% on the week at 51 cents. I remember when it was sub a penny, so I've seen it over $1 as well. And it's sitting there at 51 cents right now. So anyway, let's look at this. This is kind of interesting. So you have the 10-year treasury still spiking higher and higher, as you can see. Highest levels we've seen in recent history. In fact, you have to go all the way back to, I don't know, the 70s? No, the 80s here before we were... Well, no, actually 2008. I apologize. I actually said that last video where we were finally over levels in 2008 with interest rates. But I'd say this is kind of uncharted territories with the amount of debt that exists now. And again, a matter of whether things break before the Federal Reserve reverses course, and then you do see cryptos potentially climbing higher. And I think that would happen even ahead of stocks. Cryptos tend to front run the stocks and get ahead of things. They sell off before stocks, we've seen, and they might even start a pump before stocks. So if we have some inklings of a reversal with rate hikes, I think that you would see cryptos potentially spike higher much quicker. And that's, I guess, some of the case for holding these things and being accumulating ahead of a potential reversal. But yeah, this was a funny meme. Maybe you find it enjoyable as well. Anyone want to buy a monkey picture? OpenSea. Anyway, it noticeably as well is you have weird things happening in the currency market. So you have Euro USD dropping 1.51%. It's a continued bloodbath. Insane. First it hit dollar parity and it's just continued south. And that's something else that's also happening potentially with the British pound, where it's the sterling pound. The sterling has dropped below $1.10, as it says here, fell as much as 3.7% today to $1.08 on Friday, triggering talk among investors about parity with the euro and the dollar, and drawing comparisons with emerging markets as the country's bonds also tumbled. You can see that exemplified here in this tweet by Jens Nordvig. One definition of an emerging market country, which is weird to hear the UK being talked about as an emerging market, right? They previously even had over there the reserve currency. So one definition of an emerging market country is a country where currency weakness and bond market weakness, go hand in hand, opposite the US, where higher yields support the USD. In the UK today, 5-year rates are up 50 basis points in a day, and the GBP, the British pound, is collapsing. Draw your own conclusion. So are we close to something breaking? I think more and more are pointing to possibilities in different kinds of markets. I mean, we're just looking at, for example, some of the bonds here and looking at currencies. But there are so many different places that things could break potentially, and that could be a politically untenable, of course, and may be a reason for an influx of new stimulus, new capital, quantitative easing, and everything else that would bring up risk assets like crypto. Although, again, I still think that they are ultimately safe haven assets, depending which ones you're looking at, like Bitcoin and Ethereum, potentially safe haven, but they're being treated like risk assets at this time. Let me know your opinions down below. I'm always interested to hear what you guys have to say. So there is apparently a framework here to ban members from trading Congress. There's been a lot of controversy about them potentially insider trading and everything else, but it could be the case that things do change with this new bill that's being put, which is following to the 2012 Stock Act, which did allow members of Congress to buy, sell, and trade stocks and other investments. This includes cryptocurrencies, it looks like, while in office, but also requires them to disclose such transactions. Congress, it says here, can act to restore the public's faith and trust in their public officials and ensure these officials act in the public interest, not their private financial interest, by restricting senior government officials, including members of Congress and Supreme Court, and their spouses and dependent children from trading stock or holding investments in securities, commodities, futures, cryptocurrency, and other similar investments, and from shorting stocks. So this is quite a change from the way things currently exist, where lawmakers are required to report the purchase, sale, or exchange of any investment over $1,000 within 30 to 35 days. But it doesn't matter if they report within that time period, because they might only be facing a $200 late fee, which is not that much. The new framework would instead enforce fines of $1,000 for every 30-day period on an individual who is in violation of the disclosure rules, increasing the late fee to $500. $1,000 if they're in violation of disclosure rules, which is still not very much, frankly, if they could be getting so much out of insider trading. It does appear like to me. So this isn't the first time that this has been done. It looks like there was a similar proposal by some other senators back in January, but there's been no movement on the bill. And the House Speaker, scary, Nancy Pelosi, said that she pushed back against these kinds of efforts to prohibit the lawmakers from owning or trading stocks, saying that they should be able to participate in that. It does seem weird to me that with all this talks about Coinbase, insider trading, and everything else, you still have members of Congress, those who can be in the know about what could be coming down the pipeline, and getting first access to a lot of information, potentially trading ahead of folks. I think there definitely could be more work done there if you and I are going to get penalties for similar kind of scenarios. Yeah, that's just my opinion on that. Just want to bring that up to you. Also, the CFO, Chief Financial Officer of insolvent crypto lender Voyager. So you might remember Voyager. They were quite similar to Celsius. They were caught up in this whole debacle that happened, and they were one of the first to declare bankruptcy. So the CFO, I guess, decided it was going to be way too much work to try to restructure through this bankruptcy. So Ashwin Prithapal has left, even though he's only been with the company since May. Previously, he was at crypto exchange Drive Digital, according to CoinDesk here, for 9 months. And previous to that, he was CFO at crypto investment firm Galaxy Digital, which you might know is front-ran by Mike Novogratz, the billionaire, who's been quite big into crypto and quite big into Ethereum for quite some time now. But yeah, it looks like he's not interested in staying on board. And you're going to have the CEO having to pull even more legwork at Voyager, Stephen Ehrlich, who's going to be taking over duties for an interim period, according to this announcement that was made. PR release. Woo! So I thought this was just funny. Sometimes you see something quite silly, especially in the cryptocurrency space, where people can act like toddlers, but sometimes they put that label even on themselves, as you can see here by a job listing from CEO of CoinFlow, who put this up. Here are some of the tasks that he needs done. So arranging 3 meals for the CEO with specific dietary requirements every day, arranging daily exercise, making sure he gets vitamins and supplements taken daily, make sure fruits and nuts are taken daily, remind the CEO to do pending tasks and oversee them completed, make sure that they got done. CEO's personal belongings are organized and readily packable for travel at a moment's notice. Ensure the CEO sleeps before a certain time. Ensure the CEO completes other daily tasks as needed, like meditation. You'd think if he meditated, he might be able to at least cover himself on some more of these areas, but whatever. Laundry is arranged to be done once every 2 weeks. He must have a lot of clothes, or a good amount of it. Able to travel all the time with the CEO as frequently as 1 new country or city each month. I guess that doesn't seem that bad, right? Travel. And having no permanent place of residence. So you have to already be a nomad due to the frequent nomad-like traveling. It is preferred for this candidate to have no family or personal commitments. That's kind of scary, right? Like, who do you call if something goes wrong? Who's going to be your emergency contact? Not the family. Kind of worrisome, right? Able to handle ad hoc and maid-like tasks as needed. 2 years of PA, personal assistant experience. So this is for a cryptocurrency company, for a cryptocurrency exchange called CoinFlow. Someone down here did tell us who the CEO was, luckily, Z Wang. So it looks like Z Wang definitely needs some of the help. But I guess it is difficult building up a cryptocurrency exchange. As liar.eth said here on the right, next Brian Armstrong right here. I'm just doing something quite silly. It can be difficult to run a company. I understand that. And to stay on top of yourself, it is quite a big split. So yeah, I guess at least he's honest here with what he expects. And it's nothing too weird. There's nothing too sexual or weird there. Hopefully it doesn't get to that. But yeah, interesting job listing. And this is quite funny too here from Robert Breedlove. How to do communism, reminding us it seems like time and time again we do fall into that trap of communism looks like the right thing to go as we hear more calls for socialism and everything else and movements away from capitalism, which to me is weird because capitalism isn't necessarily the way to run a country. It's just kind of remarking on how markets operate. And when you stop capitalism, I think that there are a lot of things that could go wrong. But anyway, how to do communism. Establish a new communist utopia. Rob or kill the successful, because we have to make everything even, of course. Force the rest to work for free. Or like in Cuba, where you have to, they give you a job. Whether you like it or not, that's your problem. I remember when I was in university, there was a world famous trumpeter who performed for my jazz band, and he performed at the band there at the university. But he talked about growing up in Cuba and how he always wanted to play the piano, but they only ever gave him a trumpet. And so he actually played piano for us there because the first thing he did when he left Cuba, communist Cuba, and went to the United States was buy himself a piano. And man, was he amazing. I think there's something beautiful when you see somebody passionately doing what they love. Although you could argue he just had a musical mind and quite a background in jazz and trumpeting, and he could easily port that over to the piano. But I would say it's not that easy to technically port over certain things and sound as good as he did. But interesting, yeah. So anyway, run out of food is the next step. Starve to death. I think they go hand in hand there. Say it wasn't real communism. We can do it right. Establish a new communist utopia. Roberts kills successful. Force the rest to work free. Run out of food. Repeat. Rinse and repeat. Oh man, I really hope we don't continue down these kinds of roads. Reddit avatar. So I had talked about how Reddit was giving away free Reddit NFTs recently. Some of these are trading for a lot of money. So there was one collection in particular that managed to sell a pair for $5,000 or 4 ETH each. This was the Census, part of the Census collection that was released here. So hands number 16 and 46. Wow. Roughly $5,000 each of them sold for 4 ETH, which is not bad. So I want to give you a heads up on that. Although generally I'm seeing that the ones that do sell are selling more around the range of around $10. But your Reddit NFT, if you did claim one or were eligible to claim one, could be worth some cash. And I think this was interesting. Absolutely Insane said, I'm a little stitious 86 on Reddit. It's absolutely insane to think that before these subreddits hated digital assets with a passion. Reddit out here changing hearts and minds with these digital doodles. So maybe a good way to create converts for the crypto space is give things away for free. I think we all know that, but we're seeing it again play out with even NFTs. There has been quite a lot of distaste for NFTs on Reddits, multiple Reddits. This was just silly. I don't even know what's going on here, but I'll play it for you.
And you've called this just tyrant, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And you actually use that word a lot with your audience. You call people tyrants, don't you?
Only when they act like it.
And you
I don't know what we just saw there. Justin Bonds here on Twitter put out a very brave tweet thread. This is extremely brave, especially in a bear market, but I think it is something that should be considered by everyone, where he calls Hex a scam. Oh, shoot. Get ready for the army. Here it comes. Let's take a look at what he had to say. I think it is something worth considering if you are still involved with Hex or plan to get involved with Hex, although in a bear market that might be less and less the case, which is exactly why I present this for you guys because I think there is still considerable risk, as I said before, with Hex. And so here we are. Hex is a scam. Technically not a Ponzi scheme, but something much worse. Hex is designed to enrich its founder through Ponzonomics. Unable to generate its own revenue, it purely relies on new investment to avoid collapse. Not all cryptocurrency innovation has been good. Claiming a return on investment of 38% if investors lock up their Hex tokens for years, swapping their hard-earned funds for Hex, Hex actually has a brilliant design as it maximizes the value the founder, Richard Hart, is able to extract from the victims of this scam, while also successfully obfuscating the Ponzonomic nature of Hex, exploiting investors' lack of understanding of complex token economics. Hex obscures through complexity by using banking terminology and tokens such as T-shares. I will not play into that in this critique. The first thing we have to understand about Hex is that all returns are purely based on inflation, and inflation does not create value in itself. In that, any value that is created is simultaneously diluted, assuming a constant demand. This is why Hex needs more adoption, since if Hex is unable to attract more investors, the price would simply collapse as a consequence of having an extremely high inflation rate. This is what makes it unsustainable, as the supply of greater fools is not infinite, exposing the Ponzonomic nature of Hex. This mechanism should also not be confused with staking, as is in the case with proof of stake. Validators are actually providing a service for which they are awarded appropriately, and slashed appropriately if they make their mistakes. If like there was recently a Lido node operator, from my understanding, they didn't have they had some sort of desyncing issue for like 8 hours. That meant that no rewards were accrued, and while slashing penalties were low, they did exist. But you do have to do the work, just like with proof of work, proof of stake. It's not just free money. Anyway, this is not the case at all with Hex, as the excessive inflation is only there for speculation's sake. Hex does not fit the specific definition of a Ponzi scheme. The SEC defines a Ponzi scheme as an investment fraud that involves the payment of purported returns to existing investors from funds contributed by new investors. This is a common defense by Hexicans. However, this definition was created over a century ago and does not account for cryptocurrencies, as Hex is just a Ponzi with extra steps. Wow, Justin. It is identical to a Ponzi except for not giving new funds to existing investors. Instead, it gives existing investors the Hex token, which Hex can print out of thin air while preserving token value through the lock-in, as it reduces sell pressure. That is as long as new investors keep jumping in. The funding in this case actually goes all the way to the founder, Richard Hart, and does not support Hex in any way. In that sense, it is quite a bit worse than a traditional Ponzi scheme. In the case of Bernie Madoff, he had to at least carefully manage the purported return of existing investors. In the case of Hex, all value disappears for investors when Hex inevitably collapses. By the way, the Bernie Madoff film is by De Niro. Robert De Niro is, I think, a really great film. You should totally check that out if you haven't. While Richard Hart is left holding the entirety of the initial investment, this actually makes it far more profitable scam from the perspective of the con man, while also being far more damaging to its victims. Clearly, not all cryptocurrency innovation has been positive. Hex also has additional mechanisms to enrich its founder even more. It is possible to leave the Hex lock-in early. However, this requires a large penalty to be paid, half of which goes to the remaining Hex participants, while another half goes directly to Richard Hart. Furthermore, for all Hex that is purchased, the same amount of Hex is created for Richard Hart. Hex also has a referral program, and each time the new Hex is generated as a reward for this referral program. You guessed it, Richard Hart also receives the same amount. This all means that Richard Hart can collect all of the raised funds and a majority of Hex supply as well. The most recent estimates based on blockchain analysis show that Richard Hart now controls more than 88% of the Hex supply, allowing for heavy price manipulation. I do not use the term scam lightly, wanting to preserve the power of such words. It is very difficult to prove that something is a scam because it requires evidence of intent. Richard Hart is clearly very intelligent, which makes me think he must know what he is doing. Richard Hart is not actually his real name. His real name is Richard Schweller. There is nothing wrong with using a pseudonym, but that changes when it covers up a shady past. Richard Schweller is a known scammer, a successful spammer of Viagra and anti-aging products, which he successfully was sued for in the early 2000s, along with legal trouble in Panama. His own blog even documents how he would sell stereo equipment he did not own and then deliver subpar equipment instead. instead hex marketing. It's also clearly designed around generating FOMO. You might accuse me of ad hominem now, just picking personally on Richard Hart, as it seems like I am attacking the person and not hex itself. I am doing this to draw a picture of Richard Schweller's psychological profile to help justify calling hex a scam by showing a pattern of fraudulent behavior in his past. The hex smart contract has been audited. This just means that the smart contract does exactly what it is supposed to do, not to confuse what an audit means in the banking world. In the cryptocurrency world, an SC, a smart contract audit on a Ponzi, only shows that the Ponzi works as intended. There was nothing stopping Richard Schweller from generating a theoretically infinite supply of hex from the ICO, as he was able to withdraw ETH from the ICO and put it back into the ICO in an infinite loop, which is exactly what he did, again proven by blockchain analysis. There's also evidence that the number of users claimed by hex is highly inflated. This is the first time I hear about that one, as a large number of addresses was created with very little hex below gas price by Richard Schweller, which was later used to falsely claim that hex has a huge number of users. From my perspective, hex is clearly a scam when investing in any cryptocurrency. Even having a fraction of the red flags that hex has should deter investment. At least this is all completely provable, as the evidence is all on the blockchain. Cryptocurrency empowers scammers, as is the case with hex, but it can also empower investors on the other side of the equation, giving us the tools for our own financial sovereignty. Special credit to wantfi.com for their research on Richard Hart and Hex. I have a lot of sympathy for Hex's investors, as Hex targeted people who do not have the expertise to discern the difference between something like Hex and BTC, which is why so much of Hex's marketing even compares itself to BTC, just like BitConnect and OneCoin also did, revealing a greater pattern of scams in our cryptocurrency ecosystem. We have to do a better job at policing ourselves or risk further intervention by the regulators, as freedom is a double-edged sword that requires greater responsibility from every individual. Although I'm hearing those who considered themselves great investors only did so and were great pickers of specific cryptocurrencies and specific stocks in a low interest rate environment, and now it's pushed come to shove time, I guess you could say. Anyway, and I guess there could be the situation where if Richard Hart does control access to all that minted hex that goes to that address, or that account, or whatever, the holder of that key, that he could somehow have set aside some funds to continue buying up his own token and at least making it look like it still has a bid before it. But how long could he do that? How many different outfits at Gucci could he buy before he ran out of the cash to continue to bid up the price of X? I don't know. Maybe there's actually a real demand for this. Or maybe we're all missing something completely and it's actually not a Ponzi. Would love to know your thoughts down below. Preston Van Loon.eth did share some more information. So we found out that Github had unbanned the Tornado Cash organization, the GitHub, the repo. So basically, Tornado Cash, which had been taken down after sanctions from the Treasury and OFAC, the Office of Controller of the Currency, or whatever it is, it came out that Microsoft, to try to be, I guess, safe, delisted GitHub and banned contributors from their platform. They're now allowed back on, and so is the code. But it looks like the code is only in read-only mode. But that is progress from an outright ban, according to Preston Van Loon. He said, I still encourage GitHub to reverse all actions and return the repos to their former status. As long as people are not actually using this stuff to money launder or even using it at all, it might not fall under sanctions from the Treasury, according to the recent FAQ that we covered here on the show about a week ago. So I wanted to give you a heads up on that. While it is back, it's only on README mode, so not completely back. What's up, Renee? Yeah, cryptos, they're doing all right. I would say they're holding up. We haven't had a huge drop. I remember how it's just like when we first started really selling off, I guess like a year ago, lose track of time. It seemed like it didn't go very long before we had huge drop-offs below our previous low during the bull market, but things do seem to be leveling off somewhat. So maybe we are reaching a bottom. I don't know. I think if we had like 2 more FOMC meetings and we're still range bound here around $19,000 Bitcoin, I think that would be a great case for accumulation, even if we didn't have yet a reversal or something, a reversal from the Fed interest rate hikes and promises of that, or something actually didn't break, forcing that. I think that would be a call to accumulate. And certainly some continue to accumulate cryptos because the lower prices go, generally they're a good buy. Assuming you're not buying something that is an outright scam, again, is going to be a rug pull. I think a lot of these tokens can even survive being called securities, although it could be a problem. I guess, where was it? I was going to jump to some news here. Maybe we'll jump ahead. Actually, that was the next news. It was related to Kraken and them announcing that they're not going to be delisting anything that is on their exchange because they don't sell securities, according to their new CEO. We know their previous CEO, Jesse Powell, who founded the company back in 2011, stepped down. The new one, Mr. Ripley, has said that he does not intend to register with the SEC because his company does not offer securities. But I guess it could be a problem where you could have a delisting of certain tokens. And depending on your jurisdiction, that might make it very difficult for you to buy different things. And it could have some sort of short-term impact on the price. But ultimately, I think prices can recover, especially if they can trade on a decentralized exchange like Fashion, such as Uniswap or an automated market maker. I do think over time, the projects that really have a demand or a niche use case will eventually climb back up, especially during a bull market, regardless of a securities status in the United States. But it could be short-term painful, I suppose. But anyway, Ripley did say there are not any tokens on Kraken that are securities, or there are not any tokens out there that are securities that we're interested in listing. There could be some new token out there that becomes interesting, I guess, could allow for some good fee revenue, and also happen to simultaneously be a security. And in that case, we would be interested potentially in a path toward registering as a platform for securities with the SEC, which Gary Gensler has been calling for more crypto exchanges to register with them following the Coinbase insider trading lawsuit that I aforementioned in the video, which basically they just named a bunch of tokens as securities without showing any proof. And now that caused a huge kerfluffle around different exchanges that were like, well, maybe we should just delist everything just in case to avoid any legal issues with the SEC and compliance issues down the line. So yeah, just a heads up on that one. Gortrobot, yeah, indeed. Things are definitely paralyzed. I even, like my last tweet, yeah, Gortrobot said in relation to El Marie saying that the chat is kind of dead, I suppose. Some all are getting somewhat paralyzed in a bear market as always. Most are a little depressed and turned introverted. Some green candles and the chatter will get intense again. Although I'm just happy to have old timers like you guys. Look, we got Validator ETH, Hi Validator ETH. We got BitWarrior64. Hola, ¿cómo está? Renee Pop. So I still got some of the good guys around, which is fantastic. But yeah, my last tweet was basically talking about how crypto Twitter is basically dead, except for the OGs who are usually around, the veterans and the newly formed veterans who have, they hold on, and some become real hodlers of last resort. Who I don't believe are exit liquidity, by the way. I do think markets eventually will turn around, and cryptos are going to be the number one place to be, as always, and as value. There's a difference between value and price, and usually in bear markets the value drops way below the price, or the price drops way below the value rather. I'm sorry about that, got it backwards. And that will have to correct, and usually it corrects to the upside, which is why you have such insane volatility. But yeah, we have to be willing to put up with some of the downside and accrue it during the downside and the bear market in order to most profit during the bull market. But yeah, we're basically left with the veterans, with the OGs. And it's pretty mum relatively everywhere else. So Tether, continue with the news and make sure you guys are informed as much as possible as we close out the week. And happy Friday, everybody. Tether has revealed that they are now supporting yet another blockchain. They're now live on 15 different blockchain networks. The latest blockchain that's going to be supported is the DOT ecosystem, Polkadot. As of the announcement today on Friday, they last added the Near protocol 11 days ago. This is being reported right here on news.bitcoin.com, which is ran by the evil, scary Roger Ver. Oh no, pushing Bitcoin Cash. Oh no, pushing Ethereum. Oh yes, if you remember what he said earlier this week. Yeah. So USDT Tether is still the top stable coin. It's got a huge market cap at $68.24 billion market valuation as of today, out of the $963.16 billion crypto economy today. So out of the whole entire market cap of cryptos, it dominates 7.078%, which is quite insane. So heads up on that news. We got more information from Mizari. They're like a crypto. They have different tools that they offer in crypto. They used to, for example, have on-chain effects, which would be very much like CoinGecko, where you would look at the price. I used to visit it all the time. They offer research reports, and they have this mainnet conference in New York. And the founder of Ethereum, Vitalik Buterin, told Zuko Wilcox, the founder of Electric Coin Company, which founded Zcash, you might remember them, that coin, and they had a chat, basically them with the Mizari CEO Ryan Selkis, to talk about some of the things that have happened with the merge. And since the merge, Mr. Buterin said the transition actually went a lot more smoothly than pretty much everyone expected. But there are other metrics that will take years or even more than a decade before we know exactly how the details will play out. Although it really does feel like the sky that has been cloudy for almost a decade is finally cleared, especially as so many doubted that Ethereum could even move to proof of stake. So what's next for Ethereum is, well, there are quite a few things next, but this seems to have focused on sharding, the next step that isn't quite here, according to Buterin. And the definition here that they put is sharding is a form of horizontal scaling that brings in additional nodes to handle more intense workloads. This next step, dubbed the surge, is slated as an intended series of single steps that will eventually allow the Ethereum network to process thousands or tens of thousands of transactions per second, up from the current 30 transactions per second in the current state. And this will help improve scalability even of layer 2s as we allow for sharding on layer 1. We just have a lot of work that needs to happen to allow for cross shards to communicate properly, so that people can use dApps across different shards rather than having to stick to one shard and not being able to access dApps that are on a different shard. There's a lot of work, I imagine, going into that right now. That's some of the biggest hurdles that are going to be coming up very soon. Although I'm hearing that most scalability will still be focused on layer 2 and rollups in the near term. So there's a lot of smart people working on approaching this problem at multiple layers of stack from different angles. And it looks like Vitalik Buterin is calling for both Zcash and Dogecoin and potentially other coins to also move to proof of stake. So as proof of stake matures, I expect it to just increase in legitimacy more and more over time. I hope that Zcash moves over, and I'm also very hopeful that Dogecoin is going to want to move over to proof of stake at some point as well, especially now that there is a clear roadmap for how something like that can be done. So, yeah, I don't know if Zuko had anything to say in relation to Zcash moving over. But it's not easy to rally an entire blockchain to port over consensus algorithms like that. I imagine there would be a lot of pushback if that was the case for either Dogecoin or Zcash. But I think it would be easier probably for Dogecoin, which today I believe is up 6%. One of the more volatile coins. I imagine as a trader, if you're someone that does like to day trade a lot, somehow you get lucky doing that. I can't see how you could predict what happens with Dogecoin movements either way, since it's so heavily manipulated by Elon Musk, by just random stuff, and even nothing, it appears like. But it's one of the more volatile coins that I imagine would be better to be a day trader for. It exists at least for that purpose. So Coinbase has been sued over patent infringement. This is being filed by Veritaseum Capital. Surely you remember Veritoken and Veritaseum and Reggie Middleton. I had on the show actually. I don't remember what year anymore, but he was on my show once as well. So the founder is suing Coinbase for damages of about at least $350 million because some of the blockchain infrastructure apparently that was created by Veritaseum is purportedly being used by Coinbase. And we get more information actually from the original Reuters article here, where it says that some of this technology was being used for processing digital currency transactions on the website of Coinbase, the mobile app, Coinbase Cloud, Pay, wallet services. And while Veritaseum did try to settle, Coinbase was not having it. They were uncooperative with settlements out of court. This isn't one of the first settlements that Reggie Middleton and Veritaseum are involved with. They sued T-Mobile in 2020 because the company's security lapses led to hackers stealing $8.7 million in crypto from them. Likely these kind of social engineering SIM swap attacks which it's not the first time these companies are sued for, these cell phone companies. T-Mobile contested the claims, and that went to arbitration in August. And this also follows a settlement with the SEC, where the Verity token was sued by the SEC and resulted ultimately in Veritaseum and entities, and Reggie Middleton included, paying $9.4 million to the SEC to settle the fraudulent scheme to sell this token in 2017 and 2018, the Verity token, and a $1 million personal penalty that Middleton himself had to pay along with this. But at least that got settled. I feel like that was more recent, but again, time just flies in crypto. So just a heads up on that one. I imagine that Coinbase just probably laughed at this lawsuit. They probably have their team not even taking it seriously at this time. They probably developed, I don't know what they did. I wonder what Reggie said exactly or thinks could have been stolen by Coinbase here. But it would be interesting if it did come out it was the case. Right now, it just doesn't seem that likely to me. But again, I guess that's for the courts to decide, and we can't really gauge of it ourselves. But yeah, it's been bloody, as Gortrabot alluded to in markets. Check this out for another laugh. 2022 year in markets review.
How are you feeling, girl? That was a crazy fight.
I'm super excited. It was really tough. It was fun. I enjoyed it. It was definitely a different ball game, but I had a blast, so thank you.
How are you feeling?
And if you're still feeling down about cryptos, waiting for the bull market, well, I'll leave you here with Evan Van Ness's tweet. If you're ever feeling down about crypto, go send the bank wire. You'll remember why this matters. Amen, brother. Amen. And our quote of the day, never give up, for that is just a place and time the tide will turn, by Harriet Beecher Stowe. Thank you so much for everyone for joining me today. I hope you've enjoyed the roundup and you've had a great week. I hope you have a fantastic weekend. I look forward to having you next week. Surely it'll be another drama-filled week in crypto. And I wish you much love, taking of care, and staying of crypticness. Peace.